Game 2 is upon us, and we are back to the basics for Snake and LGD as Snake return to a tried and true strategy, going for team fights and flanking, and it works out for them in game number 1. LGD, they did exactly as we expected. They tried to go back to basics as well, sitting back all nice and chest squared and shoulders ready as they get into this game. You just look very regal right now. It's almost like you predicted something like this would happen. So let's talk a little bit about what LGD did in that game 1 and how they can close it out, because we identified they played that smart early game. They played the 3 turrets, they took the Rift Herald, they took that early Dragon, but it was where they needed that creativity in the mid game that they fell apart. And Snake, they don't need that creativity. Their strategy has always been team fight.
It's not so much the creativity, although I do agree with you, it was just kind of basic fundamentals that were coming out of both of these teams, but it was the fact that, again, you had these individual decision-making failures. The fact that Jinnu took a questionable back timing, the fact that the vision game from LGD had been so poor, despite the fact that they had tempo advantage for the first 20 minutes of the game. You know, at that point, you should be able to suffocate Snake out of their own jungle, but the vision line never pressed forward. It was really just Yuki who was on the forefront of that battle. So, again, for me, it's about identifying where are LGD strong specifically and where are they weak specifically. They're strong in their solo lanes, in their stars. Y4 had a phenomenal game on Orianna. He was doing his job, he was zoning, he had great responsibility, he's brand new to the team. Yuki is definitely showcasing himself as an up-and-coming mid laner. Jinnu has always been someone that we've complimented quite heavily, but the support staff, the glue between these pieces, Amy and PYL, are just not on the same page with each other or the team, and that's the Achilles heel of LGD. It's finding them in the cracks of these moments where their vision is weak, where their team fight or their support staff aren't there to play a front line.
And it's so interesting that we're seeing this fall apart after such a strong early game from the two. We saw Amy and PYL working together during that early jungle phase, but the moment they needed to demonstrate their own creativity past that laning phase, it started to crumble. And
it's much harder to do. Of course, their lane phase is going to be strong because they have good individual players next to them in the lane. You have Yuki, Jinnu, and Y4 that you're playing between.
Yeah.
But when the map gets opened up, when you need to start to pilot a lot of these inexperienced players around the map, when you need to look at Amy and PYL for their veteranship status, that's when things fall flat.
Well, hopefully we'll get a chance to see if LGD can recover from their issues. I'm sure UDJ, the new coach to LGD, will be providing plenty of important feedback as he got to watch the exact same game that we did. The question is, will we see the LGD roster take all of that and use that knowledge going forward against Snake? Because Snake, they've already found an avenue for success. They don't need to do anything different.
Yeah, and I would like to see Snake continue this avenue. I'm not a huge fan of the funnel compositions. I was always more on the ADC standard type of bruiser League of Legends that the LPL was playing, just because my region showcased that it was much better than the funnel comp at Rift Rivals.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Ah, yes, good, fond memories.
Yes.
And it just works so much better for Snake. Again, I think if you have all of your resources and all of your gold on one person, then you're eliminating the potential from someone like Flandre to just go nuts like he did in that MVP game.
Yeah, and perhaps that explains why we had so much difficulty with that Darius before the game, because that Jax was so important. He knew why he had to get that Jax. So hopefully we shouldn't be having any more technical difficulties as we get into this game too. I had to say something, didn't I? I just had to say something.
You sweet spring child.
Hopefully we'll be getting into this picks and bans as soon as we can, because again, all the players are on stage.
You know what?
And
I hope we don't get into the game. I'm just excited to sit down and talk with you,
have a chat
and just
about
talk about
the state of these teams, because LGD, they have such a legacy that hangs over their heads like the sword of Damocles. I actually want to talk to you a little bit about coming in as a coach to a team that has this sword hanging above them, that banner of glory.
99% of their roster. These kids weren't even born before that 2015 era. They don't even remember.
They didn't exist at that point in time.
It was so long ago. They're like, what? This team used to be a world... No.
You don't even say that. So if you're the coach coming into this, do you set the standard then with this reset for the new era of the team and try to let them forget? There is no past, there's only today, and that performance is what matters?
That's exactly it. You're just It really depends. Every single team is different. I think one of the biggest issues in League of Legends is there's not a lot of access behind the curtain to see what happens in, you know, the Emerald City of League of Legends. A coach's position from team to team is vastly different. There's no set responsibility. People are like, oh yes, it must be the coach's fault for the drafting. Well, majority of these teams, and in my experience working with multiple teams, most of the drafting decisions are done by the players. They have so much more control, because if you think about it, you know, who are you going to listen to? The player that you spend massive amounts of money on, that are essentially the branding of your organization, or the coach that you picked up at the last second to tack on to your roster?
Well, perhaps we'll get the chance to find an answer to that question in this game 2 as we load onto the Rift, into pick and ban between LGD and Snake. Swain is the first pickup for LGD this time around, taking that away from Guogo and banning that Rise again. So trying to put him on something a little less comfortable in the mid lane.
And it has just been such a signature pick of Snake that they want to prioritize getting Guogo a champion like Swain. They've really been comfortable making sure that they get a strong 2v2 matchup in the bot lane so they can do their funnel strategy. Now, I do want to point out that in their previous series, Snake's previous series against TOP, that Braum and Tarek were consistently being banned away from Snake to deny any sort of funnel. Now, the funnel opportunity is actually wide open for Snake right now.
Especially now that they've got that Morgana locked in. It's a lot of freedom for Guogo if he wants to try taking that champion bottom lane. But in fact, it's SOFM picking up the Kindred. Looks across at Amy and says, your Raptors, they're mine.
Could also still be quite a funnel composition. We haven't seen SOFM grab the Kindred for this type of style, but you can see why Kindred as a champion would fit very well into it. It also could be reminiscent of the LGD composition that was run in Game 1 by just making sure that you have complete control over the jungle and grabbing a kill pressure mid lane like the Talon.
And despite running a mage bottom in Game 1, LGD are instead taking something a lot safer with that bottom lane. Y4 and PYL declaring they want to play for that laning phase. Varus and Tom Kench now as the next champions for LGD.
And this throws a lot of shade on Guoguo that he can't grab something like a Vladimir and head down into that bottom lane because Varus will just absolutely destroy Vladimir there. So I like the fact that LG are again throwing down the gauntlet and saying, no, we're going to play standard League of Legends and you will play to us.
And that's what we see as that Ashe is picked up to match the Kindred for Snake.
Also to match the Varus. One of the few champions that can compete with Varus's wave with his range as well as his wave clear and get him underneath that tower. And then also how Ashe unlocks SOFM with information by utilizing the Hawk Shot. So making sure that we're keeping track of what Light is scouting out with the Hawk Shot and what SOFM does with that type of information.
It'll be, again, up to Maestro and SOFM to set up that vision that will enable SOFM to invade into the jungle, though we're still not seeing a jungler yet out of Amy to try and answer. Nocturne banned away. Meanwhile, LGD quite happily focusing away Flandre's pool in that top lane. We'll see if the support is going to be the next pickup for Snake or if they blind pick Flandre something a bit more comfortable in that top lane, as now it's a Darius swap over from Snake.
Would imagine that the Morgana will slot into the support position, so I think it's about getting Guogo a good matchup, but they already see the Swain, and you can suspect that Yuki would take it, but we'll see. Crazier things happen.
There is some flexibility there. And now LGD, do they continue to focus out Flandre here, who provided such a massive impact in that last game's ending? Yasuo again banned away from Snake. So instead, just taking away that champion. Now we look to Light to see what he decides to lock in for Snake for Flandre or Guoguo.
Mid lane or top, making sure that they're going to get a counter pick one way or the other. I do like an Orianna lock-in.
Nice and safe in that mid lane. Massive range, good wave clear. Again, buffed. We talked all about it in that last one, as that is now locked in. So LGD, now they get a chance to show us their composition, and Flandre gets to save counterpick if that Morgana goes bottom.
And while we wait for LGD to kind of showcase their hand, I do want to talk about all of the shields that are now available for Snake between Orianna shield as well as the Black shield, and then again that team fighting prowess that they have. Now, the one issue is that they don't have a lot of consistent hard CC. They're very reliant on non-committal CC, like the Dark Binding and like the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, which is why I actually really like the the Zac here, because you have long range, hard engage with access into a backline where Orianna and Ashe are going to be standing, and it's LGD saying, okay, they've got great pick potential, they want to 5v5, so how do we disrupt that? We're going to grab hold of the Zac.
And that's also a very signature comfort pick for Amy in the jungle. It's a champion that he's been playing for a very long time, so something that he could show a lot of strength on. Of course, that gangplank for Jinnu in the top lane to try and round things out. Again, stacks up very well, sets up very easily with the cannon barrage. So Snake, as the answer, they're going to take Vladimir in that top lane for Flandre to match that gangplank.
And it's going to be a farm-heavy lane up into the top side. Now, of course, Gangplank's going to have more access to cross-map team fights, utilizing his ultimate, whereas Vladimir is more about grouping up in that big 5v5. But otherwise, this is almost comfort across the board. Flandre is an exceptional Vladimir player. It was one of his big signature champions. He is very confident in the Vladimir Gangplank matchup, one of the first to pull this one out. So Jinnu needs to be on his best behavior here.
If you ever overextend, it's real tough to run away from that Vladimir when he can just chase you down with the transfusion and tower dive you with Tides of Blood, plus SOFM hunting away for as many marks as he can find. It's not exactly hard CC up top, but it is a lot of damage.
There's not a lot of CC anywhere except for his bottom lane, but we never expect SOFM to be the gank-heavy jungler. This is about having pushing lanes, having the ability that they can collapse into the river if needed, and empowering SOFM to take it to Amy and contest him in the jungle.
And just like that, the coaches shake hands as they make their way backstage. And we now prepare to load onto the Rift. How will Snake enable SOFM on this Kindred this time around? They've got a pretty strong pushing lane with that Ashe Morgana bottom, and they've got themselves that Vladimir up top to try and match that gangplank. With that pressure, will SOFM be free to hunt whatever target he so desires, or will LGD be the ones that bite back and lock down SOFM before his team can't support him?
They've got a lot easier composition to execute this time around when it comes to the big 5v5s. They also have a lot more hard engage, so if LGD ever do get tempo advantage, they're not going to fall into the same problem that happened in game number 1, where they were unable to choose and pick when they fought.
With that freedom, there's a lot more opportunity for LGD to try and get themselves either ahead or back into the game.
Back into the series at this point.
Yeah, because they need to start taking some wins. Again, LGD, this is a team that is 1-5 right now in the rankings.
And it would be such a big story for LGD if they could grab a win over Snake. This is not one of the teams that they're expected to beat. LGD, of course, are sitting last place in their current conference, and Snake are sitting about middle of the road. So in terms of actual viable opponents that LGD could pick off, you would assume one of the weaker teams. So grabbing a win over Snake here would be massive for not just momentum, but just the score across the board.
Could very well begin to upset things in that Eastern Conference if we start to see LGD begin to rise towards those playoffs. But Snake already and waiting. All they need is one Nexus explosion going their way, and this series is over as we load onto the Rift for LGD versus Snake.
And you can't keep the LGD fans down, making the trip from Hangzhou over to Chongqing to face off in the Snake Pit, as hopefully they can tie this series up and take us to Game 3. But I want to talk about windows right now, because you can see that Snake are prepping a delayed invade. They haven't been spotted by this ward just yet, I believe. Now they will. But it's this idea that they understand that Zac is a jungler that doesn't gank pre-level 5. And so there's this massive time frame where SOFM can move into the jungle, set the pace, and try to put Amy on the back foot, which is why I don't necessarily like Amy on Zac against SOFM as a jungler. I like Zac as a pick for this composition. You cover the nameplates, I'm all in agreement.
Yeah.
You reveal to me that it's SOFM, I'm like, ooh, non-duelist skirmish heavy jungler against SOFM who's going to take everything.
Yeah, bit of a question. Perhaps this runs into what SOFM was expecting to go in this matchup, because again, we saw the same thing in the beginning of Game 1 in that last game, where Amy tracked SOFM, stole his camps away. Yuki on that Talon was able to step in and invade and put SOFM behind. So perhaps a bit of a personal vendetta out of SOFM, despite winning the game.
It's now all eyes to see if Amy's going to go cross-map and attempt to get 2 buffs by moving towards SOFM's red, but unfortunately, because he didn't get any sort of vision or information, he'd be working with imperfect information, having to assume that SOFM went for the Scuttle Crab.
Jinnu actually takes a turret shot to trade back against Flandre. He's got Corrupting Potion, so should be able to get some health back, but Flandre with the transfusion. Good vision play, gets them away from the follow-up. We did also see a defensive ward set up by Guoguo to watch Amy in case he were to go for the invade. That's why we see him on the Scuttle Crab right now. And without Elastic Slingshot, he can't break through the armor on that Scuttle, and this is real slow for Oscar.
And that's also why we see that SOFM took the pathing that he did. Because Guoguo had set up that ward, SOFM knew that he didn't have to go from red to red, and instead could go red. Attempted Raptors, didn't get it, we'll ignore it. Scuttle Crab, Gromp blue to his own red. So taking a very slow route, but getting everything in return. And with Amy still struggling over that little crab, he could run into problems right here.
And now he's finally level 3, getting that crab and stepping in, but SOFM already has double buff. He's already on his own Raptor camp, and that means Amy has to try and pick up the remnants of his own jungle on the other side. The only camp remaining is that Raptor camp and the Krugs on the bottom half, but this is already looking a bit dicey for Snake because Light and Maestro have been pushing in down here to try to match back against the initial trade we saw Y4 and PYL make.
And just a byproduct of the fact that Morgana has access to the Dark Soil as well as the volley from Ashe. So this lane is expected to go that way, and frankly I expect it to also be isolated. To me this should be just a ping pong match back and forth of here's the waves for you, okay, the waves now for me, just because both these junglers have kind of made it the all that it's going to be about facing each other off in the jungle and leaving the lanes alone. Although, as I say that,
Amy was able to get behind the bottom lane of Light and Maestro, but it has to be noted that Elastic Slingshot range is very low very early on, and we can see a defensive ward placed by Light and Maestro in that river as SOFM thinks of stepping up mid. Guoguo's having a little bit of a tough time here without that teleport, just trading back with that Swain because of the Corrupting Potion and the teleport advantage that Yuki used.
But it's recognizing that he is facing a Swain and a Zac, and while the gank pressure might not be there immediately, it eventually will be. So taking the safer option, having access to the cleanse as opposed to the TP, I like where Guoguo's headed at.
And with that wave pushing in just for a moment, that buys enough time for SOFM to step into the jungle and steal away yet another camp. 32 camps already, creeps to 21 for Amy as Flandre teleports back into the top lane to match Jinnu, who already used his own teleport nice and early. Sapphire Crystal and that full Corrupting Potion. Let's see if he has enough for the Sheen. He's waiting for it. He's real close.
He's got one foot on the base.
On the edge of my seat. There he goes. Locks in that Sheen and heads up towards the top
lane. Oh no,
lane.
Yuki!
You know, oh, actually that's Guoguo who's going real low. Yuki might get the solo kill plus the burn. And Guoguo's able to survive, but Yuki goes way too far. Amy does come to the rescue though, but that's still first blood to SOFM.
Binding.
Maestro shows up, binding forces flash from Amy.
Beautifully done right there. I do want to give credit to Guoguo, the fact that he kept his cool, he held his cleanse, used his flash appropriately, make sure that Yuki didn't go for the kill. Yuki also made the correct call. I'm in this deep. I know I'm about to get ganked. I have to make it count. I must make it worth. Tried his hardest, and then unfortunately was like, okay, I understand. This is how it happens.
At that point, you just accept your fate and take the kill. Guoguo with a good reaction flash to Yuki's own, escapes with his life, and now is able to make his way back into that lane. A little bit safer, but SOFM, so begins the snowball.
But the one win condition for LGD here is that while, yes, both flashes are down, the cleanse and flash from Orianna is down, and it's Zac Swing. There are so many more pieces of hard CC to make this a viable kill lane, where it's Kindred Orianna. So SOFM needs to be on his best behavior, looking for a counter gank, because otherwise he can't punish the flash nearly as well as LGD can.
Well, currently he's found Yuki. That's the demonic ascension. Yuki just wanted to check the Raptors, but is forced to ult. Amy, meanwhile, is trying to finish off the Raptors of SOFM. Yuki steps up. He knows he's got the support of his jungler. I wonder who's doing the shot calling here, Frost, because Yuki steps up, but is unable to finish off Guoguo, though they do kill SOFM. Good
assist from Jinnu right there to try to turn the tides. And again, you can see that LGD understand where they're strong, where the win conditions are, how they want to play the map. And hold on, good binding. I think it should delay. Whoa,
Light actually steps back in. That's the ignite. He's still got heal from Maestro to walk him back.
Light really testing his luck there.
Really was.
He's like, oh, I can go for one more. Maestro's like, no. Please don't.
Please don't do that. I mean, Light, he's one game up on his first game back with Snake, so perhaps feeling a little bit of the momentum, especially now that he can see that his team has 2 kills elsewhere on the map. So he wants to get on the scoreboard too. He wants to participate, and he has to cleanse immediately. Never mind. As the arrow fires out. but Light misses, and now Maestro is going to step up onto PYL. He's got his own flash. SOFM set to chase him down. That's the dancing arrows. One more auto for the big chunk, but he shields late and survives regardless.
A lot of some action back and forth. Kind of questionable. It feels like everyone's just a bit hypey.
Yeah. Need to calm down, guys. Go back to that safe and standard from game 1 that worked out so well for you.
But again, the important thing is that we're missing so many summoner spells right now, and this is always going to be better for LGD because they have the hard pieces of CC. So Amy, my eyes, they are drawn to you. You see that Ashe has no flash, the Morgana has no flash, the Orianna has no flash. Do something.
Well, right now he's taken blue buff, and he is level 6, so has 3 points in the elastic slingshot, and of course Let's Bounce to escort a target back into his own team.
I'm ready.
As am I. Well, right now it's on the Wolf Camp. Edge of my seat. Okay, now it's Gromp. Still edge of my seat.
It's not gonna... We can calm down.
Look, Scuttle has just spawned.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Edge of my seat. Hawkshot has also now spotted him out. So it's getting a little tougher, and SOFM looks to be heading down there to finish this off as he ticks over to level 10. I believe, yeah.
They have vision, though, that SOFM and Gogo are topside because of this control ward. Come on, Amy. Just, I see the ping down there.
Yeah, there is a ping down into the bottom lane. There's also Krug, so let's not get too excited.
No, he's got nothing else.
And now he's been spotted out by a aggressive ward placed by Guoguo in that mid lane and a control ward placed into the river.
All he's got to do is stand behind the... He knows. He's doing a good job. He's clearing out the vision.
Yeah, there he goes. Yuki going to trade with Guoguo. And he's thinking, in fact, about ganking the mid lane, though Guoguo's cleanse is back up.
This feels like one of those point of view streams that we used to do for Worlds, the alternative streams,
yeah,
where you just watch one player.
The entire time.
Oh,
Chains
here we
of
go.
Corruption again, but the arrow, PYL tanks it. Y4 doesn't land the piercing arrow to trade it back.
And again, all of this is really about Amy. He recognizes that his bot lane has kill pressure, and he's just trying to apply as much pressure
into his mid
bot lane.
Target onto Guoguo, never move misses. He's still got the cleanse, walking through the cannon barrage, shockwave on top of himself. Finally, they get the kill. Jinnu picks it up. SOFM returns into the mid lane. That demonic ascension, keeping Yuki talked up, but has to be afraid of that Kindred.
Boom! There we go. That's exactly what we wanted. Punishing these flashes. LG now have pressure in multiple lanes. It's just the little Gangplank who's hanging on. He's only a couple of CS down. Isn't going to hurt him too much up there, so
he's
perfect
actually
position.
Up in gold after getting that kill over his opponent. You can see it's just about even everywhere else, though a 500 gold lead for SOFM so far in this laning phase, and a 700 gold lead for Y4. He's 30 CS ahead of Light in that bottom lane.
It was just an unfortunate reality that Y4 had to sit behind Uzi and Abel, that no one really got to see that this guy was a talented ADC.
He's pretty good at League of Legends. And they're actually setting up to take first break. They passed it to him in that last game on the Orianna. Let's see if they do the same thing here.
And the biggest problem here is that skirmish that happened where Light got overzealous, was forced to burn his flash and his cleanse. Hold on.
SOFM actually leaps aggressively forward. He's got the black shield on his own. Targets PYL. A late teleport from Jinnu as PYL goes golden. Maestro matches with the soul shackles. Tries to tag the stun, but PYL pulls Amy out. Yuki doing some work, but Lamb's respite to save Maestro. It very well could cost them, though, as SOFM flashes back. He hasn't found the kill yet, but that's a late teleport from Flandre. Guoguo has entered the fray. They've killed SOFM on the backside, and LGD and the Chaos are winning the fight. Now, can they escape with their lives? Because Flandre is hunting down some kills. He's found one. They've managed to kill Amy in the back, and they're turning it into 3 as Yuki will sidestep. Flandre heals up and survives.
And at the very end, it's a chaotic mess across the board. The biggest difference, of course, is that Jinnu couldn't join the fight. Flandre was very late to join the fight. I'd like to go back and check his TP timer, and maybe it was an instance where he could only join the fight then. But we will take a restock of that. But I wanted to talk about why that bot lane tower went down in the first place. Because you look at Ashe and Morgana, they should have had the push priority there. They did for the majority of the lane. And then the 2v2 skirmish went wrong.
Yeah.
Light's inexperience showed up. They lost all of their summoner spells. They could no longer afford to be that forward in the lane. And suddenly tempo advantage to LGD. And they capitalized beautifully on it, forcing the tower. And then things go a little bit sideways here. Now, checking Flandre's TP.
He's got teleport.
Yeah, he just wasn't... We're going to call questionable comms on that. We're going to get the mic check.
It's the comms. There's the teleport.
He just decided, okay, we can actually fight this one.
Give me something to teleport to. I can hear it in the comms. Give me something to teleport to. 2 wards are placed down, and there's a minion wave. Late teleport, he gets in, cleans up Yuki in the back. Though he does take a little bit more damage, I think, than he needs to.
Just cutting it close.
Not quite respecting the sway, and Gromp even wanted to get in on the action. But still, That fight evens things out. It's still 1,000, maybe 1,300 gold in favor of LGD, and where things were starting to snowball for Snake in that mid lane and in the jungle are starting to equalize a bit more. Amy's got a kill and a handful of assists. We're seeing Yuki on the board with 2 kills and 3 assists in SOFM. Even looking to push the tempo further, though he might not have the advantage he thinks he has.
And it's also about where the gold is kind of landing in these teams and who is acquiring that power. The fact that Snake's composition has a lot of power and gold on Vladimir as well as Orianna right now is actually pretty terrifying due to their team fight ability, whereas on the other side, it's all about Yuki and his Swain. Some love given to Gangplank, but he has a very expensive build path and a very long way out before he's really going to start hitting hard. So
yeah, especially with the delayed Spectre's Cowl to set that Triforce back a good 1,200 gold. It hurts, but you do what you can to survive a lane against the Vladimir.
But ultimately, we're in a very even game, depending on what the matchups are that run into each other in a lot of these skirmishes. As far as Y4 and PYL are concerned, they feel super confident and very comfortable to be this aggressive in the lane, as long as PYL protects from the arrow like that.
And that's exactly what we see. They decide to turn on the Maestro instead. He has no Black Shield, uses Soul Shackles and Flash defensively, but Y4 finishes off the turret. Bottom lane, SOFM has found Jinnu. He's got Flash, flashes away. SOFM looking to chase, and he gets the late Hunter's mark for the kill. 5 stacks on that Kindred, but LGD turn on to Herald.
Yeah, and then on the other side, it's the fact that the Gangplank is the weak member for LGD, so if Snake can try to punish that, get Flandre more leverage and farther ahead.
LGD are actually backing out of this one here. They
don't have any of their
see
ultimates.
Guoguo stepping up, yeah, and decide not to fight. Yuki did go for a recall in that mid lane, and it's just SOFM walking up.
Yeah, some interesting cross-communication from LGD. You could tell that Jinnu suspected that the dive was coming up, especially because a large wave was going to crash into his tower, but just a little bit delayed on that call to get him to safety.
And now we've got that Dragon picked up. Still 5 stacks on that Kindred, but Rift Herald looks to be finished off by LGD on the opposite side. Bottom tier 1 was also taken by Snake, finally getting them on the board in terms of these turrets, but this communication is going to have to be cleaned up by LGD. They can't just play around their power point of Y4 and PYL, because all it takes is one good shockwave and arrow. And that Varus is dead regardless of the Tahm Kench. Especially if you just kill the Tahm Kench first, because it is PYL after all.
I still like the composition that LGD have put together and how they're playing the map right now. I think Y4 and Yuki are looking really confident and comfortable, so hopefully they pair up with Amy and we start to see more of these larger skirmishes, not just the 2v2s, but the 3v3s and the 4v4s, because that's exactly what Snake want to do.
Yeah, they're setting up to fight bottom, but seems like LGD well aware. Abyssal Voyage to pull Y4 to safety.
It's probably the best play PYL's made all series.
Turning around and running away. Oh boy.
But recognizing when he should do so.
Yes. And now look at the vision that LGD have to give up as a result of that rotation from Snake. It is triple control ward in the river on top side for Snake. So it looks like Light might be trying to invest and break down that top tier 1. You can see the gold difference between those two 80 carries is 1,600 gold. In the mid lane, it's close to even. And there's a slight jungle advantage as well.
But LGD are not going to play into this game. You can see that everyone is funneling into that mid lane. They have access to the Rift Herald, I believe. I need to check on which member, however. And they want to set a trap. So Amy's moving to the side. He's looking to flank and dive onto the tower.
That's the Elastic Slingshot. Maestro is going to be the one who gets Black Shield. 4-man Shockwave and the arrow in the front. They found Yuki. He's still snared, but they managed to turn around and kill Guoguo. In the meanwhile, Flandre flashes in, finds Y4. He turns and runs. Will die to the Hemo Plague eventually, but Flandre is really feeling it. Dives under the turret to chase them all the way back. It ends up being 1-for-1.
I mean, 1-for-1, but it looked hella cool.
That it did. They're now pushing onto the tier 1. And Flandre is still just pushing up. SOFM is behind them. He's still got that Lamb's Respite. Teleport being used. Jinnu is already dead. PYL tries to pull him away, and this is just a clean and easy dive. SOFM, he's got so much tempo behind him. Light flashes back. Uh-oh, even the Lamb's Respite. Zach's going to have to walk out of that, though, and another kill picked up. Yuki steps up, trying to get the kill onto Light. A cleanse. Flandre sidestepping for his life, and still he wants the kill. Goes for the transfusion. Tides of blood. Onto the minion, has to walk through a turret. Flandre, what are you doing, man? calm yourself.
All you need to understand about Flandre is that he knows Vladimir inside and out. This is one of his signature picks, and this is one of the reasons that when Vladimir fell out of favor in the top lane, as did Snake. If Flandre ever gets access to this champion, he showcases why he is so damn good. 4-0-3. This was all about him. He didn't care about the tower. He knew exactly where he was strong, when he was strong, what his trade windows were.
SOFM's the one who starts things off, but it's just kill after kill as they juggle this turret aggro, knowing they've got SOFM's Lamb's Respite.
Yeah, I'm going to give a small little shout out there to Maestro, the real carry of the team, who took that tower like a man, fell down for Flandre.
And now he's 4-0-3, as you mentioned. He's got the needlessly large rod as well, and the Spellbinder's completion first, plus 10 stacks on that Dark Seal. This Vlad means business. He activates the Spellbinder, hits you with that Blood Rush transfusion. It is gonna hurt.
It's gonna hurt also when you just stack a little Shockwave on top of it.
Oh, but they've actually found a pick onto Glogo. Again, the Let's Bounce, a late flash plus Command Protect, and Maestro with the Soul Shackle. He's found PYL, but Cleanse gets him out. Arrow misses as PYL sidesteps.
You can see that Flandre was on the hunt. He was just
running in, yeah. Up to 93 stacks, 94.
But LGD, they've made it very clear what their game plan is. They want this tower to fall down. Here comes the Rift Herald on the top of your screen. They're going to try to force it, but it is a one-man army with Flandre
yeah,
here. He's
he
like,
steps up.
I dare you.
Immediately, the Rift Herald is going to get the charge and dies before the rest of LGD can follow up. The turret is still standing. SOFM caught by Never Move, Black Shield. He's got the respite if he feels frisky, but still just playing it close. LGD are pushing this game against Snake, but they are pushing against a brick wall.
It is just a sunk cost fallacy at this point. LGD are like, we've been here for 5 minutes. It has to fall.
They found Flandre. He drops into the Tides of Blood. That's the arrow. He's going real low. A late Hemo Plague onto Y4, and yes, the turret is taken, but a lot of time gets wasted on it.
And that's the question. In this time where the tempo is trading back, where LG must make their backs spin their gold and reset, what do Snake grab? It looks like Snake are actually going to trade their backs as well, but I feel like Snake could get a little bit frisky, run towards this Baron, not start it, but at least grab
the bait.
Yeah, grab the vision around it because of the nature of their composition, because of the Morgana and the Ashe. Then they just set the trap.
We'll see if that's what they go for as they're heading back up into the mid lane. You can see LGD have set up some pretty healthy control wards on both sides of that mid lane to track Flandre and the movements of that duo. SOFM at level 11, feeling pretty good about himself. Is up to 6 stacks now. So he's starting to get pretty big on this Kindred. And still the Dragon is going to spawn in 30 seconds as Baron has now made his way onto the Rift, announcing his presence to the teams. And things get a chance to reset. Snake, they decide not to make a Gambit rush for that Baron and secure all of the vision. And instead, they're just putting SOFM down there to perhaps look for a pick or this Scuttle Crab. There he goes.
He doesn't have his hop for a little bit. There he goes.
Pretty short cooldown.
Yeah, but he did use it initially on the crab without any vision of where anyone was.
Yes, well, if you do hit the crab, the cooldown is reduced.
If
you hit a target.
I understand,
yeah.
but...
I mean, that's the outplay, right? The faith factor of SOFM.
It's like the
Vietnamese Jungle King.
The trick with Lee Sin is that when you're clearing out a ward or something, you don't want to immediately use your shield because then you have zero escape out of it.
Yeah.
SOFM was like, I'm going to press all of my buttons and I have any viable cooldowns available for this.
But look at how LGD respond to that. They saw SOFM on the top side. They knew Snake were prioritizing that Baron vision. And instead, they just send Amy and Jinnu to collapse from that pushing bottom lane and take down that Mountain Dragon. That does mean Guogol and SOFM get the chance to push top, forcing Yuki back and taking a tier 1. But it's 2 turrets to 3, and it's still just this even push and pull between the teams.
But then it's about what you value there. So naturally, the thing about the Mountain Dragon is that you don't get any value from it unless you're using it offensively. You must be in control for it to actually give you power because you must hit the tower. So from Snake's perspective, it's still trading up for Snake. They take down the tower, it gives them more leverage control over the Baron area, and as long as LG are never in a position to utilize the Mountain Dragon, win-win.
Well, they need to prevent LGD from doing that, though. And that means keeping all of their turrets safe, keeping all of their Barons safe, all of the upcoming Dragons. I really just want them to start attacking it right now just to prove a point.
No. We do not want that. We want LGD to do good things, Dom.
Yes.
I'm a everybody wins.
Yeah. At what point does it become a self-fulfilling prophecy for this team, though, that they find themselves in this situation for the past 3 years?
LGD?
Yeah.
It's clear that they had sunk themselves into a roster that wasn't working. They recognized that there were flaws, and now we are starting the new growth period. I'm willing to give LGD, this new birth of them, some time before I just drop the hammer of 2015 expectations.
Look, that sword is hanging above them as SOFM has found Yuki, and look at that Kindred damage. He trades it back, sidesteps the Never Move, and flashes the wall as Y4 and PYL show up.
Good Abyssal Voyage from PYL. Naturally, it's 100% always going to be worth it because you got the flash off of SOFM, but if you kill him...
Even better.
Yep, with that Baron.
But SOFM, he's starting to hunt down some kills.
Is that what he's doing, or is he starting to do the SOFM thing where he just feels a bit too confident in himself and puts his face into things?
He's got 6 stacks, Frost.
He's also lost his flash and almost died.
Well, look, we'll find out. It's a fine line between genius and insanity as Let's Bounce is used to carry a single minion back, the turret goes down, and still SOFM leaps forward with his dancing arrows.
See, if he had picked SOFM as his target there, as opposed to the Ashe. Now, I know it's a gamble.
Yep,
You're dealing with the Black Shield,
and
you're dealing with the Flash, and you're dealing with the Lamb's Respite.
Yeah.
Just saying, there were options.
There were. Amy decided to look for the Ashe.
That was your choose-your-own-adventure book. I didn't like the page we turned to.
Is it one of those, like, I want to enter the cave, there's a cave in and you die, go back to page 1, where it just abruptly ends with no narrative response?
Not the Book of Horrors.
Okay. Well, that was also... Anyways, getting back into this game.
I give you a D&D reference and you spit in my face.
The Tomb of Horrors?
There we go.
You said Book of Horrors.
I don't play D&D.
Here's a reference to a thing you may or may not get because I don't actually know.
I try.
I appreciate the effort.
I'm trying to bridge our cultures.
You're giving it a go. You're giving it a real go. Just like Snake and LGD are trying in this set.
Good segue.
To get us, LGD to get us into Game 3 and Snake to close out this series. But to get back to the point we were talking about just a moment ago, SOFM, it's a fine line between insanity and genius. And for SOFM, that line is defined by success. If he succeeds, it is genius.
There's a fine line between tanking and feeding, and it's dependent on what your team does with it.
Tanking or feeding, and that line is determined when you die. If you survive, you tank successfully. If you die, you do not. That's it. That's the SOFM line. You laugh because it's true.
I'm a fan of power inting.
Give it the old Giga int. He's only died twice. I mean, look at all of
It's not about how many times he dies. It's about when he dies.
Yes.
SOFM is notorious for dying at the wrong times.
Remember the Rek'Sai game where he proxied the wave and took Wolf Camp 50 minutes in when the rest of his team was dead? That was the fine line between insanity and genius. And we know which side of the line he ended on that particular day. All right, that's a binding onto Yuki. Ooh, arrow.
Ooh.
Tags onto Amy.
Good job, PYL.
They're looking for the picks.
Here we go. Team fight.
They are on the prowl. Light steps up. He's got flash and
all eyes on Flandre.
He steps up. Emo play gets the minions. Yuki. PYL will escort his carry back as Y4 takes a hit, but Flandre is so deep. Look at the shockwave. It's a chase on the front line as Jinu heads back out. Chains of corruption, but Y4, he doesn't barely stand a chance against this Vladimir. He's got enough damage to push him back, but that Vlad will heal right back up.
And they take the team fight in the mid lane, and now they're going to rock over into the Baron. Now, Amy is still alive, doesn't have access to Flash, does have Elastic Slingshot, but he's coming from the wrong side of this.
Look at all of that healing. 800 on the Empowered Transfusion. Maestro trying to zone. Piercing arrow. It's Flandre. Transfuse again. Another 800 health. It's up to the Vlad to tank it. Flash from Gogo. He wants Y4. He gets the kill. Amy trying to run for his life. Gets popped into the Bloblets. Jinu knows what has happened. He knows what happens when his jungler dies. Just have to back away. No cannon barrage, no flash, no chance as Snake turned onto the Baron.
And this is something that isn't often considered. It's a team's ability to turn off the Baron, with which Snake's composition is actually very easy to do. As now it's just up to Jinu and a TP Yuki to try to stall this.
And Yuki is big enough to scare Snake back. He's only got one of those soul shards, but Demonic Ascension and a lot of those Eldritch Blasts are ready.
But you're not going to get that type of play again because obviously the TP was used to get him into the mid lane. And so now Snake can reset and play the same play. They recognize how strong Flandre is. Death Cap, Spellbinder, and the Zhonya's Hourglass complete. He's a big boy.
He is absolutely a large vampire. Nosferatu. because he's fat. He's real big. That's the Spellbinders to chase onto Yuki. The Hemo Plague and the arrow will just barely miss Yuki as he sidesteps. He did have flash as well, but even using the Demonic Ascension defensively, do we still call it Demonic Ascension when he's the Dragon Trainer?
Dragon Ascension?
I like that. I'm about it. Dragon taken now by Snake. They will hope to put this Mountain Dragon to use, unlike LGD, with their own.
And we're back now to this dance over Baron, and this is my favorite one. So what we're going to be looking for is just the repeated Yahtzee of Light's cooldown. As soon as he has the arrow, we're going to throw it up. Now, on the other side, though, Amy actually did try to do work that last team fight. Wish we'd gotten a replay of it, because he threw himself into the backline, forced multiple summoner spells off of both Guo and Light. Unfortunately, wasn't able to clean up the team fight, but should have much better success this time around with these two carries. Very vulnerable now.
Just looking for the opportunity. Jinu is setting up over the wall as it's a bit of a cheese play out of LGD. Light has no summoners, but he does have that Vladimir in front of him to keep him safe. That's a cannon. Missing SOFM. Sorry, a barrel, not a cannon. If that were a cannon, that would be impressive.
Flandre has access to TP.
He's real deep. SOFM, he's feeling it. This is the line, Frost. He sidesteps one.
The reason why he's feeling it is because he's got Morgana next to him.
Yeah.
Black Shield.
And Flandre on the other side. I mean, as is Snake's prerogative, when they take the fights, they take them in these crazy flanking positions. Flandre's now got the opportunity to try and push bottom if you were so inclined to keep that Gangplank busy.
He's hiding and he's trying to catch GP. He's grabbing the red buff right now, and if he finds him... Nope, he's just going to take it and run. I was going to say, because Flandre was just like scouting in that jungle. He's like, am I going to find Jinu? Am I going to take the red buff? Am I going to grab the wave? What's it going to be?
Is Y4 going to come for the red? Who knows? It's like a choose your own adventure, but somebody else picks the page for you.
Like the Tomb of Horrors.
You can't just repeat the joke when it's not topically appropriate.
It's a choose your own adventure book. Of the 80s, I don't know.
Oh boy. And still, SOFM, he's just sitting there. He knows he's got Maestro and Light. Arrow is ready. PYL has got that QSS to clear out of a stun. Yuki doesn't land the Never Move, but the arrow actually hits onto Y4, and the Shockwave pop! Goes the Varus as Yuki gets picked up by PYL. He's now running for his life, but Flandre is on the chase. He lands with the Hemo Plague. He gets one. Jinu goes low. Yuki goes golden, but he's about to go down, Indiana, because LGD, they've just lost another team fight to this massive Vladimir, and that's 4 members of LGD
and
dead.
Flanders is just running through LGD right now. He's just high-fiving them as he goes by. He's racing across the finish line, arms outstretched.
Sexy Flandre. 5-0-8. Bit disappointed he didn't complete the Magi's, but Baron picked up by Snake off the back of this. The world is their oyster. I just want to point out, it is 18 kills to 6 right now.
But only a 5K advantage, but a lot of standing gold.
Absolutely, a lot of that gold still up, but a quick recall for Snake as they are set to run it down, because this is just clean old arrow hit onto Y4.
And Y4 doesn't have access to his flash. PYL wasn't standing near him, so just miscommunication. Yes, Y4 should not have been there. He didn't have vision about where the Ashe was, but ultimately, if PYL's standing next to him, that's okay to do because you just gobble him up.
And just like that, the easy chase down. I love how even when Snake find a pick, it's not a conventional pick of like front to back. It was landing the arrow from one side and then Guo flanking from the other. So even in finding their picks, Snake have to be unconventional with their approach.
This is my favorite version of Snake. I'm done with that funnel. I do not like it.
Let it be gone. And now the arrow, whoop, that one missed. Whoop. Yuki's still thinking about it. That's the sound the arrow makes as it flies by. It's got a little whistling sound. And Guoguo's going to start sieging onto this tier 2 turret, finally set to break this game open. That's the Elastic Slingshot Black Shield still onto Guoguo, and he gets popped before he can even leap away. That's the Cannon Barrage, our matey, for the damage. Corrupting Change is going to miss, as Maestro with the Soul Shackles finds 3 Shockwave onto more. But Flandre is just chasing down the kills. Yuki under his own turret doesn't stand a chance, tries to find the kill on the Maestro, but Lamb's Respite says no. And the Pirate goes back to the Bilgewater Bay as Snake win another fight.
Arrgh! That's the best I can do right there.
That's a great one.
It is from bad to
That's
worse
the
for
ace.
LGD. This ended about 3 arrows ago. Flandre, it's just too massive for LGD to deal with. And Snake, back to the drawing board, back to basics, throw out the funnel, grab the new ADC, and just absolutely smash through LGD.
And in traditional Snake fashion, it takes longer than average to win the games, but it's clean the whole way through. Once they start to find some momentum, Snake crush the Nexus, and as you said, they take the win off the back of that guy right there, Flandre. Great performance.
And if that man doesn't get back-to-back MVPs, there is no justice. That Vladimir was terrifying, and Flandre reminding everyone why that champion was one of the most banned against him for all of spring.
And LGD will have to stand and shake hands, not able to take the bow today, as they find themselves now 1-6 in the standings, but they're doing the same thing as Snake, returning back to the classics for them to try and find some momentum as they approach the second half of the split in this cross-conference, trying to take some free wins, but we do have to commend Snake for finally finding some own momentum that they can claim as theirs.
And we don't really know what's happening behind the curtain for Snake. It could be that they're still, going into the sandbox, playing with their new toys, working their new developed strategy as they start to take some of the data from Rift Rivals. So maybe we still see that creativity peak. Maybe Snake are playing their cards a bit closer to their chest as we get closer and closer to playoffs, because that has always been the thorn in Snake's side. They run out of tricks right before it matters.
And it's unexpected synergy between Flandre, Guogwo, and Light that close out this game. Maestro just playing nice and slow, putting black shields to enable his team to do crazy things, while Light lands arrow after arrow in these fights, and Guogwo steps up with some damage to support that massive Flandre. All they needed to do was fling that Vladimir into the back line, and it was all over. Look at that damage.
It wasn't just Flandre, as you can see across the board, everyone from Snake doing their part, and that's when Snake thrived. Again, I didn't like the funnel composition because it meant that they only had one threat. The beautiful thing about Snake is they've got multiple threats. They attack you from every single angle.
It's never just one member. It's never just one piece of pick or one person skirmishing. It's either SOFM and Guogwo or SOFM and Light just popping out at you.
I mean, what's more terrifying, a single snake or a herd of snakes?
Is that what we're calling them, the herd? It has the Ouroboros of Snake finally pulled its own tail out of its mouth and started attacking opponents instead of itself?
We're going to shelf all the way back to game number 1. They've gone full Hydra. This is Hercules. There's heads everywhere.
Well, maybe Snake can go the distance in this, because they need to take down some heroes if they want to try to approach playoffs coming on in just a few weeks. But that being said, though, we do see the Snake victory. It's time for our analyst to break down that Snake win.
Thanks, guys, and it was a decisive victory for Snake, especially in match number 2. And before we break down that game a little bit further, it's going to be lesson time with Barento, Raz, Muhammad. Raz, what is the lesson for today about, this series and about some of the intricacies in this game?
I'll talk about the finer detail of the Varus pick to begin this, because Varus is a pick. Now, a lot of people have been wondering, how do you build him? Do you go full AP? Do you go towards the full crit build, which... No, please. On hit is the one that you want to go for if you don't want to go straight in towards the AP build. And so what I found lovely is a build that was actually seen in the LCK beforehand. It was in the tier innovator himself, Mr. Prey.
And let's get into that first, because the first time we saw Prey innovate for bottom lane AD carries was when we saw the double tier Ezreal build that was used during MSI by quite a few AD carries. Seems like he's doing it again, this time with Varus. Now, tier is not something we haven't seen on Varus before. Back when he was lethality build or pure damage build, we saw a lot of tier to compensate for his mana issues when he was spamming the piercing arrow as well as the hail of arrows. But this time he's going up with an on-hit build. That sounds a bit whiffy. Why is he doing this?
Yeah, people wondered that because it's basically going in between both. But the issue is, or at least the reality for it, is the shock passive, which is the on-hit that you get, the 45 extra damage that you have with the on-hit build from Muramana gets doubled with Guinsoo's. So now you have 90 AD added to your second auto attack that Guinsoo's piles up on you. So it's nice to see that you can actually go for the first tier. People have been wondering, can you go for a second tier on that? But that loses the whole point of the build, which is an incredibly strong mid game.
But you can.
You can do it. But the mid game is super strong with adding in that tier that comes into it.
I know what I'm doing later, and I'm going to try double tier Varus Raz. Good idea? Good idea.
I won't condone this. I'm not. You
He
can do it.
builds ability
You can
power
do it.
already.
It's not in my game.
He already builds ability power. I'm going to do it in your match. You're the biggest troll on the
Wait
team,
a
so it's going to
minute.
be absolutely fine. But let's go into the
That's true, though.
intricacies of the matchup alone. Snake taking on LGD. This time, Snake were able to pick up a decisive victory, even though LGD were trying to experiment with things again. But they did throw 80 carries into the bottom lane for both of these squads.
Yeah, and it came through from Snake's team play ultimately is why they won out. I think a lot of it came down from LGD having standard lanes. I thought their mid game, or at least their mid lane duo, was a lot more promising. I would love to have seen Amy be there for Yuki's skirmishes a little bit more frequently earlier on, because Yuki was having a good early game once again, but he just didn't have the backing. The problem is, Caster said it, Flandre was on point every time. TP's coming through spot on. He was always there in the skirmishes when he was needed. And so every time LGD was looking for a fight or were sieging, it was the Vladimir that was immediately in the back line. So immediately, great game from Flandre.
Yeah, big match coming up from Flandre, and I really want to ask the question, how long does the Flandre buff work? How long is it going to last for Snake? Because he's always looked really good as a top laner for the squad, but Snake haven't been able to push that extra step further and get a big top 3 finish, or potentially an international appearance.
Yeah, they can just strong arm you with talent. Like, that's something that I'm never concerned about when it comes to Snake. It just comes down to the structure of the team fight. They place the most wards of teams, but do they protect them properly? Are they patient around them? And can they set up the team fights that, you know, they have strong team fighters of Flandre and SOFM. Ultimately, when it comes down to playoff time, that's no. And we need to see this consistently, because taking wins like this, that's great, but you have to have those consistent points later on.
Well, let's take a look at how they actually won this match, because yes, it was a good start coming out from Snake. It was a little bit back and forth and a bit chaotic between the two teams. But one Ash Arrow broke open the match for Snake. They were able to catch the 80 carry of Varus and turn a big team fight.
And great follow-up here, too. So Light nails him. You have the immediate follow-up of the Orianna. And from that point forward, Snake recognizes that it's open hunting season. And they can just run in, flank the rest of the members of LGD. Because they themselves were setting up for a play. That's why 2 of those members from LGD were out of position. They were the ones that were caught off by surprise that it was the Varus getting immediately caught out. So unfortunate from LGD. It's good to see them on a good start, that they are forming their own plays now, because that wasn't the LGD we saw in Spring Split. But Snake are just that much better.
I mean, it's a type of attack that we saw from Snake that they used quite frequently when they were the lane swapping team after taking the first turret. You park Ashe in the mid lane, suddenly if the other 80 carry walks up, unless you're Tom Kench, or you have QSS, or you have a cleanse, you're dead. That seemed to happen against Varus, he getting caught out during that fight, and it just led to a complete snowball. Snake were able to find another fight in the bottom lane where they're able to steamroll through LGD and pick up the victory off the back of it.
And it's all in the earlier advantages that they had. So if you even try to defend these towers, it's not going to happen. You can just see the speed boost coming through from Flandre. He's just diving 2 towers deep. You can do this with the amount of kills, the amount of gold lead that you had there. So that's just a product of the lead that they had. It's just nice to see that Snake are willing to dive so far down with the lead that they have.
I mean, even picking up the champions that LGD played in the first match. Orianna being picked up, that's going into the mid lane this time for Guoguo, and SOFM going towards the Kindred, a jungler that you'd expect SOFM to know very well.
Yeah, and so immediately he's just always in the enemy jungle, constantly counter jungling, which you would like to see because that's a positive matchup, but that's just the SOFM we know and love. We didn't get to see that much of that in the previous weeks because he's been go funneling, so he's in the mid lane much more than he's in the enemy jungle. So now that we get to see true SOFM styling the enemy jungle and then making that advantage worthwhile later in the skirmishes and team fights, it's the SOFM we love and it's love to watch.
I mean, I like to watch the gold funding SOFM as well. Watching him with a ton of gold was fantastic. It was either int or be inted upon. And it was great, but this time it's really Flandre who was the true carry. Frostcone asked the question, will he get back-to-back MVPs? And that's going to be the case. Game number 2 MVP goes to Snake's top laner of Flandre.
There we go, 25% damage percentage. A lot of that means that he was someone you had to fear. 74% kill participation, 6-0 and 11. Flandre, you love to see games like these on the mage tops that he has. Vladimir, Rise. I want to see if he can do that going forward because Spellbook did get buffed. It's a possibility going forward.
We want to see more from him because we know that Snake have the raw talent. We've seen what they can do individually as a team. Now they've got Hudia sitting on the bench as well. They've got the likes of Crystal, who they've been saying, even Light, who've been playing as the AD carry for Snake in this match against LGD, looking good. Now can they put the pieces of the puzzle together and make their way towards playoffs? But that wraps up the first best of 3 series that we have today. Behind us, we're getting ready for the second as well as third series that will be live here from Shanghai. That's about 20 minutes a match, 20 minutes away, not match. So we're going to go into a quick break, which is going to be about quickly 20 minutes long. We'll be back with the second set in just a bit.
这个夏天，IG 有太多东西需要证明，请大家拭目以待。